Okay. Good afternoon, everyone, and good morning from the viewers in UK, if there's any. Thank you for joining us in Design Up Close Craft Focus Keynote presentation with Nicholas Gant and Domisilium Studio. Initiated in 2020 by Museum Macan and BWI, Design Up Close is a program series that is dedicated to the practice and theory of design, creating a bridge between global designers and local design issues, as well as building platforms and communities to discuss and shape the design industry as a whole. The program consists of a keynote presentation paired with a mentoring on open review program. Design Up Close is collaborating with British Council's Crafting Future programs. Crafting Futures support the future of craft around the globe. This British Council program strengthens economic, social, and cultural development through learning and access. Crafting Futures projects support practices and people through research, collaboration, and education. Design Up Close is also powered by Cisco WebEx. This keynote presentation will highlight the exploration of materials, repurposing the existing materials, and developing new materials. Today, joining with us, we already have Mr. Hugh Mafat, the Country Director of British Council Indonesia. So I'd like to invite Mr. Hugh to give a welcoming remarks. Mr. Hugh, the screen is yours.
Thanks very much. Good afternoon, everybody, or good morning, wherever you might be. My name is Hugh. I'm from the British Council, currently in the UK. But this is a great opportunity for us, a first opportunity for us to a collaboration with Museum Macan and BWI from Indonesia. And it's certainly the connection we're looking for in terms of promoting crafts, design and connections, cultural connections between the UK and Indonesia. We have a tube map, an underground map of the UK to Indonesia partnerships. It's a complex map with many different relationships that have been formed over the years. And what we're looking to do over this next few years is really pull that together to demonstrate how those connections have been working over a number of years and to build on those. And this is another example of this. This is our first time with Museum Macan, as I mentioned, and it's an opportunity to think other ways of how do we promote crafts and culture and design connections in this new world. And particularly now, of course, as we go virtual, and having seen Museum Macan's virtual tour, I've really enjoyed that. It's the reality where we are now. At some point in the future, we will go back to that face-to-face. But of course, what we've learned is we can do more of this kind of exchange with technical professionals without having to travel all around the world. And we've had a number of such partnerships already in Indonesia, where we've had some really interesting dialogue between professionals who are exchanging some quite amazing ideas and examples. So thank you very much to Museum Macan for that. As I mentioned, with this mapping exercise, it does help put on the map, as it were, the fact that the arts is very powerful and important in Indonesia, the arts in its broadest sense, from design, culture, etc. And there are two angles for us as the British Council, an international organisation connecting people, to really think about for this year, and how do we really make more noise about this, because we want to promote such activities, as I'm sure you all do. This year is the year of the creative economy and sustainable development, which of course is sponsored by the UN, by the Indonesian government. So we're working with the Ministry of Tourism, Creative Economy to think of ways of what more can we do in Indonesia in 2021 in this pandemic to really raise the profile of organisations who are doing things such as yourselves with the Museum Macan. So how can we do more? So there's an opportunity there to really make a noise about it. And then from another UK perspective, the UK obviously is looking at working more closely with Indonesia on a number of levels. And the creative economy, for example, is an area that is of interest on a joint trade review discussion, which is coming up between the UK and the Indonesian government. And in all of those contexts, there's an opportunity to really make more of what this tube map I mentioned, which is we're going to be producing into a more detailed process, which shows the connections between 14 cities in Indonesia to the UK, and then to start to say, so how can we do more with that? So just to say thank you very much to Museum Macan for allowing us to join you in your network. We hope this mutual collaboration we can build on, and as I say, this opportunity for continuing to connect professionals around design and content and culture is something we want to do more of, and we can do more of through events such as this, as well as hopefully at some point get back to some kind of face-to-face, which I'm sure will be possible in the next few years. But clearly we can do more with that virtual digital mix that we're all getting so professional at. And so just to say thank you very much again to all of you for joining, but also to Nick, Santi, Humphrey, Eugene, Pat Giles, BWI, and Museum Machan for the partnership. And we are really looking forward to the discussion. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hugh. So now I'd like to invite Pak Charles Sutanto, Director of BWI Furniture, who is also the co-initiator of Design Up Close program, to give a welcoming remark. Pak Charles, the screen is yours.
Thank you, Widdy. I think first of all, to Pak Hugh and the British Council, I think it's we would like to say thank you for this opportunity and for your involvement. As Widdy just pointed out at the beginning, when we set up this Design Up Close, we wanted to actually build a platform and community so that people can exchange ideas, right? I believe Indonesia have tremendous talents. I mean, the people that you see here, Eugene, Santi, Humphrey, I mean, it's amazing the stuff that they do, right? But at the same time, I think as a country also, we have our own constraints and challenges, right? I think we need to learn, continuously learn to actually improve what we have, and also to contribute to economy, to the economy of Indonesia, to the world, right? So I think, this craft focus Design Up Close is really complementing the objective that we have. And we hope that, all the participants that are viewing this can actually learn. And then I'm also glad the fact that we are also going to push this, not just conceptually, but also creating a prototype, which we hope that it become a, you can feel and touch the final product, which I think is very important right now. So I guess we would like to thank you again for your partnership and for this opportunity, and thank you to Museum Machan, and of course Nick for sharing your knowledge for our Indonesian participants and viewers. Eugene for doing this second time around. Thank you so much, and Santi and Humphrey, of course, right? Appreciate for you to actually share your experience, because you are in the forefront of this, doing the sustainability and circular economy in Indonesia. So I hope that everybody will enjoy the session, and for the participant for the open call to also learn something out of this. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you very much, Pak Charles. Joining us today, we have our speaker, Nicholas Gant from Community 21, Santi Alesius and Humphrey Teja from Domisilium Studio. Today's presentation will be moderated by Eugenio Hendro. So, based in Jakarta, Eugenio Hendro received a design degree from Institut Teknologi Bandung, focus on designing objects and furniture, merging various cultural contexts and combining new technologies with traditional craftsmanship in order to highlight multifaceted beauty of the materials and draw renewed attention to small details. Eugenio was also the mentor for Design Up Close, Design and Contemporary Lifestyle. Without further ado, Mas Eugene, the screen is yours.
Thank you, Widdy. Thank you, Hugh and Charles. Thank you so much for the kind words. Okay, hello and welcome everyone to Design Up Close virtual event series. This Design Up Close series for today's session is brought to you by BWI, Museum Machan, and of course British Council. So today's sessions, we will be talking about craft and materials. And we have two speakers, three speakers. We are going to dive into the craft and material topics. And for our first speaker, let me introduce Nicholas Gant, the founder of Community 21, a design and research consultancy based in UK, focusing on social and sustainability and sustainable design. Please welcome Nicholas Gant and his presentation. Nicholas, please.
Good morning. Thank you very much. Thanks, everybody. And thank you very much to Museum Machan for inviting me here in the British Council. It's a great honour to be here and to be part of this conversation today. As you say, the circumstances mean that we aren't working face to face, but it's been amazing recently how many of the conversations that the British Council have helped to facilitate have led to some really, really interesting and dynamic both conversations and new initiatives. So it's, again, as always, really, really great to be here. So I'm going to try and share my screen, just do the normal fumble around with the technologies, and hopefully you will be able to see my presentation. Please let me know if not. All right, yeah, so thank you, Eugene. So yeah, I'm from the UK. I work at the University of Brighton on the south coast of England, and I set up a design consultancy within the university that, as Eugene says, we deal with what we call social and sustainable design. So design that's very geared towards supporting society and communities to improve and benefit themselves through collaborative design, and obviously working towards sustainability, which is a goal that we're all very interested in. We're very lucky to be able to work in collaboration with lots of different companies and organizations, from very local level NGOs and charities and individual companies through to larger organizations and companies that have a place on the global stage. And here are some of the organizations that we've worked with over recent years. And we're a collaboration. I work with myself and a great deal of colleagues across the university and other universities in the UK and abroad. So here's where we kind of live, where we hang out. This is our laboratory. I mean, they're referred to as labs here in the university, but really they're workshops. And, you know, the theme today, thinking about the relationship between craft and technology, and contemporary ideas of the traditions of craft in relation to modern issues and problems. We very much work from a craft person's mentality and philosophy, really. Really, we believe that to make change in the world, you need to understand where that change can happen. And if you want to make change to materials and our material culture, you need to understand that fundamentally. So we very much encourage our students to make at a fundamental level so that they can understand where they can enact change in that. And our department leads to lots of really interesting innovations. We're very lucky to have wonderful, clever students. This is a piece of work from Adam Fairweather, one of my students historically, who has a company that turns coffee grounds into a whole range of different products. So these are coffee cups made from waste coffee. And Anna Bullis, who creates these bins, these very interesting bins that go out into the street that are made from chewing gum. So the chewing gum that pollutes our streets, an everyday problem, turned into new contemporary materials. And whilst these are kind of designer mass-produced products, they come very much from the craft mentality and using craftsmanship to explore and understand what is chewing gum, what kind of material is it, and how it can be turned into something like this, which in many ways is a kind of alchemy, a kind of a magic. And it's that kind of thing that craftspeople are very good at kind of getting to the root of and revealing in our world. And then I historically worked out of this building, which was led by one of my colleagues, and a project I worked on as well. And this is the Waste House, and this is the first building in Europe to be made entirely from waste materials. So it has lots of different materials built into it that come from other building sites. In the UK, for every 5 houses we build, we waste the equivalent of 1 house. And so we were looking very much at how we could transform those materials that would otherwise be burnt or incinerated, or sent to landfill, how they could be made into a fully building regulation building such as this. So today, really what I'm kind of interested in is this notion of how, as craftspeople, as makers, we think in the round. And this is not new. This is ideas that are starting to kind of emerge in terms of the public conscious, but from many respects are things that makers have done since time immemorial, really. So for us, makers, we feel are right at the center of this debate about the future of economies, the environment, but also society, because matter matters. We work with materials, and materials really do matter, whether it's the creation of carbon, emissions, pollution, the fabrication of things that we mine from the earth and turn them into different materials, the materials that we can hold and protect and use on a day-to-day basis. Matter really matters. And you could argue that sustainability, in many respects, is a matter of matters and the way that we behave around materials. So we have this kind of issue. We have this productive model that isn't very productive in terms of how it maintains a relationship to the biosphere and to holding on to our materials in a way that is sustainable for the future. We have this linear economy where effectively we dig and create holes over here on the left-hand side. We mine things from the earth. We turn those things into materials that can be utilized, and we transport those around the world and convert those into kind of products that, like metals, sheet materials, and so on, that can be turned into products. And they get turned into the products that we buy and use. And they are very quickly, very inefficiently turned back into landfill and further forms of pollution through incineration. And this model cannot be sustained. It doesn't work. It's inefficient. So really, we're moving much more to this notion of circular economies, and makers and craftspeople are very much at the center of understanding how we do this. The three key pillars are to keep materials and products in use, so reuse them, repair, remake, and recycle. To design out waste and pollution, so think about how we make more efficient models for that and how we extend product lifespans. And also, how do we regenerate natural systems and actively promote the environment that's around us? And that third pillar is something that is very, very key, and something that we're thinking more and more about. So waste really is a key issue for us, and certainly in Brighton we've been thinking an awful lot about waste and what it means. And in many respects, we like to imagine that waste is actually a result of what we think and what we feel, as well as what we do. So you know, we throw things away on a daily basis, unfortunately, and these things can be a result of many different things. We may feel, for example, that the shirt that I'm wearing no longer suits me. It doesn't fit with my tribe or the way that I want to present myself in the world, so I get rid of it. I may think that my car is inefficient and not up to date and could be more efficient, so I get rid of it. So these things are really, really critical to the way that we kind of consider our roles as designers and makers, because we're really interested in the behavior of matter, how we can change materials and make them better and use them productively. But we're also interested in matters of behavior, the kind of human condition that sits around the objects that we make and makes us think about how we use them, how we dispose of them, and how they relate to our lives in the world. And I use this analogy really of these people that I hope you're familiar with. This idea of in Star Trek, there's these two kind of key characters. One is this chap, Dr. Spock, who in many respects sort of characterizes this idea of how we might need to think about our lives today. And certainly as an academic, I'm expected to be kind of scientific and rigorous and very, very measured in the way I go about things. And in many respects, as consumers now, we're being asked more and more to have a kind of scientific understanding, to behave logically around materials and really think about the things that we do and their impacts in the world in a very logical, dispassionate way. But of course, as human beings, we're more like this chap, right? And in the Star Trek films, this guy, Captain Kirk, is much more emotive. He's much more impassioned and reactive and responsive. And when you think about the things that we buy in the world and the things that we consume, how many of them are bought with the head and how many of them are bought with the heart? And it's really important that we really, really balance this out. So a lot of our work is really thinking about, within this idea of circular economies, where objects and materials can go round and around and be reused and recycled. There is very much a kind of subjective, very much an objective scientific notion of material commodification, management of materials, which often is quite technical, quite rigorous, and is often about commodity trading, those kind of things. But also we feel it's really, really important that designers and makers are aware that there's also this very critical subjective side, which is about values and our relationships to stuff in the world and what connects us as people. And these things need to be thought of together. It's very, very important. It's no good us being able to recycle all the materials in the world if consumers don't want them or don't see value in them. So as designers, as makers, I think we really encourage a notion of rethinking and re-scripting the stories and narratives that sit around our everyday products. And, you know, materials have meaning. 10 years ago, this bottle I put in front of me here maybe related to this idea of us having consumed water from Nordic streams, something about health and vitality. But of course, this material and this bottle now has been recast as part of a journey of something that's much more kind of insidious and problematic in the world, and probably relates now, we think of this in relation to material waste. So I live in Brighton on the south coast of England, and here's a very local problem for us. This is the bank holiday before COVID, on the beach in Brighton where I live. And then the next day, this is what's left. And this is problematic, right? We know why this is problematic. These materials leach into the marine environment and cause a lot of problems. So back in 2010, my partner on the left-hand side there and myself were working with local organizations to do beach cleanups. But what's really interesting for us as makers is as soon as we take these materials out of the marine environment and sort and organize them, they start to take on a different meaning. The people who collect them relate to these materials in a different way, and we consider them to have different values. And with this product, which is from 2011, we press these materials using a converted t-shirt press very simply into the production of a pair of flip-flops. So trying to engage both the quantitative technical side of the material, understanding them as a thermoplastic, but more importantly, considering the value of those materials as they're collected and shared and put back into this product, and give this product meaning and value and an association with caring for the environment. So it's a kind of narrative and story. And obviously bigger brands around the world, such as Adidas, have cottoned on to this idea that they can make change in a technical sense, gathering materials from around the world, but also considering the stories and values that are associated to these. And these first trainers created by Adidas were created by a craftsperson, by a maker who understand how to weave these materials into new opportunities for change. And other big brands in the world are cottoning on to this idea of how as makers, we relate to materials that perhaps have a local value, a local meaning, that connect us in more meaningful ways to the products we buy. So thinking about when we go to the supermarket or we connect to materials, these things can have very different associations. So the one bottle here may well be virgin material, brand new, and the other might be recycled time and time again, but we don't know the difference. And why is that? Well, as makers, we can explore these ideas. So these are a pair of Wellington boots that we're exploring the idea of recycling one from perhaps when you're a child into a pair of boots for when you grow older. And we visually take the material from one boot and put it into the other and so on. So through, as makers, we can deal with the technical angle of turning these materials, which are very possible to be recycled, but moreover, we start to explore the visual material meaning of actually telling the story of how these materials go through their lives and gather meaning and heritage and a kind of material pedigree, which is really, really important to establishing their value, their long-term value over time. And again, as makers, we can construct and curate and script these stories and narratives that are becoming more and more powerful in the consumer world. So my last example is the Wiki Waste workshop project that we did remotely between ourselves and townships in South Africa. And working from the UK, we were working with a township that had a landfill site built within its community. So the wealthier members of society pushed their materials out to poorer communities and they're burnt in those neighborhoods, which has very detrimental impacts on the environment, on pollution, on health, but also socially. It's a really, really negative thing to have wealthier communities push their rubbish into your neighborhood. So in this situation, we looked at how to turn, with an NGO called the Dreamcatcher Foundation, we worked with them to see how we could take everyday materials such as plastics and turn them into a more positive environment for entrepreneurship, to allow people without any creative education to learn how to turn negative materials waste into a positive thing and make change in that environment. And these products all come from learning through making and understanding the value of materials and how they can be transformed over time into something that's much, much more positive, that connects people to their environment, connects people to their community, improves social cohesion between different parts of the community, and it gives a new opportunity to people who perhaps had less opportunity than others. Also thinking about how we take this material technically and use it creatively, but also how these materials and objects start to gather real meaning in terms of this transition from one state of where we are with our problematic linear economy into something much, much more positive and enacting. So my final slide really is to look at, these are three pillars are really, really important for us to consider as makers, as part of our circular economy. But I argue that thanks to makers and craftspeople and their mentality and philosophy, this grows into a much wider opportunity. So we also add health and well-being and education through making, connection with our materials in a way that's very, very profound and helps us to learn about our relationships here. And we build new opportunities and create a culture of circular economies, which is vitally important to establishing and sustaining positive circular communities. Okay, that's the end of my formal presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nick. Oh, what a great presentation. You're talking a lot about sustainability and about how the makers will be the focus in the, not focus, it's the center of the community where makers is essentially creates product that not dictate but influence the behaviors of the users. So what is important is like the makers should make something that is really thoughtful. Otherwise, it becomes something that is very dangerous for the world. It becomes a disease to the world. Okay, before we go to questions and discussion, let's jump into the second presentations by our speakers, our second speakers. They are the brain and the founders of a very interesting and fun architecture and interior design consultancy in Jakarta, which has also created a couple of brands under their wing, DMDO and Fred Helly. Is that correct? Okay, Fred Helly. Please welcome Santi Aloysius and Humphrey Teja.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, everyone. Okay, I'm gonna share. Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Santi Aloysius.
And I'm Humphrey Teja.
We're from Domisilium Studio, but under us, we have also a product design company called DMDO and also a retail company, a new retail company called Fred Helly. So today we're going to share about our journey as a studio.
Right, and also how we came about to meeting some of these fantastic clients and having like fantastic projects that actually celebrate some of the upcycling of like the products and also like projects.
And also a journey of us working together with local craftsmen and everything that is local in Indonesia. All right.
So Domisilium was started in 2009, and we happened to have a project about 3 years ago. We met with one of the owners named Ruben, who he and his partners have a furniture workshop, or also a furniture mill, I guess. So in that we were asked to design a restaurant, and we went to see their workshop because they called this restaurant Kayu Kayu, and the Kayu Kayu means, of course, wood. And so when we visited the workshop, we kind of saw like what's the reality of what's going on inside the workshop. That there are a lot of waste and a lot of things that is not being used, and what can we do with those waste? And instead of like creating something new, why don't we just upcycle some of the products that they have?
Because usually they will actually burn those wooden waste, because there's like mountains and mountains of them. Not only some wooden waste, but they also have some old machineries from the manufacturers, and it got us really thinking, and then what we can do with all this waste.
So we started with the building facade. I mean, it's a quite simple like building, but it needs to look striking. So we salvage a lot of like we went through a lot of the workshop, and they managed to salvage a lot of this like wooden railroad tracks that we actually use it on the facade just for show for at night, especially to attract people's attention.
Yeah.
And since our concept is basically Kayu Kayu, so the wood actually really represent the name of the restaurant. And here when we went to the workshop, we saw that they actually managed to create this kind of finger joint wood from all this
boards. They make them into boards?
Yes, they make them into boards, and we actually use them for floorings. Otherwise, all this end cuts are probably like, burned and wasted. So we decided, if you can do that, why don't we use it in the project? Because I think a lot of Indonesians' mindset with wood is that they wanted something that's a bit more solid. And of course, with solid, there have to be like some kind of end cuts. And we don't want to waste all these end cuts. So we decided to make them into a board and then reuse them again in the project. And also some of the wooden chips that we found lying around, we actually use them for some artwork. It actually kind of helps with the acoustics, so that was actually kind of nice. Then also some of the tables, furniture is all like, salvaged from like, old wooden structures from old houses. And also like we managed to refurbish some of the vintage furniture that's left over from like old houses. We managed to collect a series of them and refurbish them to make them look a lot more updated and nice for customers. And of course, everything we did here has to do with wood. So the custom light, we did like kind of this turbine structure that kind of helps to give an ambience for the lighting. And since on the second floor, we did like kind of this chevron pattern. So we kind of used the leftover for the bars. Of course, all these craftsmen come into play because they actually help to manage to assemble this and make this like look really, really nice from all this waste. So I guess next we have like a case study with studyndo, so which is our sister company. We started in 2018, and we've been working together with like manufacturers and also like local manufacturers who don't have like a designer's perspective, or quote unquote. So they want us to help them design something, but of course we can't select our clients. But here is one of the clients that we really enjoyed working with. The first one that we worked together, it's like we have the honor of working with Sula Home. Yes, so basically we just want to change the perception of the products made from upcycled materials of lesser value than that of new, because I think people wanted something that's new. And of course, like when we think about it, there's really nothing to say that, newer stuff are actually better, and older stuff are not as good. So, and also there's also this big general assumption that products from abroad are of superior quality. So we want to prove people that, that here in Indonesia, our craftsmen are equally capable of doing really, really nice stuff.
Yeah, if I may add, I think the MDO was born out of our frustration because we couldn't really find things that we can use in projects, and a lot of these the things that we found in the market, they're either like very not well designed, or they actually made from things that would make us rethink about using it because they're not from things that are good for the environment. So the reason why we have this is at first we're trying to actually, maybe we can work with a local manufacturer who has the same vision with us. But as Humphrey told you before, it's sometimes you can't really choose who you work with, but we try. But this is one of the products that we enjoy, because we work together with Sula. It's a local company. They're also making like soft home furnishings made from the waste, the fabric waste material from not blanket, from soft toys, from soft toys, like those little fluffy furry material. Right. So but also when they reach us, they said like they wanted to do some kind of furniture line that has to do with using upcycled material. But and then we came up with this idea because since we have plenty of rubber plantation in Indonesia, especially in Sumatra area, and we learn about how their wood, actually when the rubber plant is not, they cannot produce the rubber anymore, they'll actually just cut them down and they will just burn them right away.
So this way we kind of help with the not burning the wood, actually, because rubber is one of the underlooked or underappreciated wood in Indonesia. I mean, Indonesia is well known for a
teak.
lot of the hardwood variety.
Yeah.
So teak is highly, highly prized. And of course, it takes a lot longer for us to even like growing it. It probably takes about 15 to 20 years compared to like, say, if you get like oak wood or something like that. So this is actually something that we are quite proud to find, and it's underused, but there's a lot of like this kind of trees that's available in Indonesia that people actually just slash and burn after they are done with they outlive their purpose. We actually were currently looking at some of the rambutan trees, some of the fruit trees that probably has outlived their purpose. Then probably like we could also make this into like into kind of this like finger joint wood as well.
Yeah.
But this is one of the projects that we're quite proud. And it has a really nice aesthetic, really nice color. So we're really, really happy with this.
Okay. Come to the next one is actually one of our latest collaborations. Actually, we were given a lot of scraps from what you call it, the vertical blind and waste material. You know, like if you go into project sites, you install some vertical blinds. Some of the measurings of the windows, they're all different. So they tend to have a lot of like waste. And there are mountains of them. My friend is actually the owner of Sunday in Indonesia, and she was like, "What are we gonna do with this?" So she made an initiative called Living Beauty Upcycle Project, which is gonna be, I think this will launch in March, but we're giving you the sneak peek of this, our work. So we're supporting them by actually giving them ideas of what to do with the waste. So we came up with this idea of actually just cutting them on like into smaller cuts and then assemble them together to look in which to be like panels in different kind of like sizes. So this collection is called Luvia, which means the rain, which is this looks like some kind of like it could look like a torrential rain, or it could look like a very nice rainy day rain. But these panels, you can use them for interior architecture purposes, as installations, as another decorative elements for the window. It could also be used for decoration. Even like the middle one, I use them for scarf, like some kind of fashion scarf, because it has that really beautiful wispy feel and very feminine.
And actually, it works right now with like our little store, because we use it for display as well as like helping with the sound acoustic.
Yeah, for the sound acoustic is the one on the right. You can use it totally for as like to help out with the sound acoustic of a room.
It's very laboring. I think we kind of enjoy like working on this project. So we just wanted to do something different. I mean, the blinds is a blind. I mean, it looks very commercial in terms of aesthetic as well. And what we can do with the waste is actually quite limitless. You can, I know that some of the people that are working on this, they are working on a lot of different items. Some are bags, some are whatever. It's like, you know, whatever they can think of, you know. So with a single material, I think we can really think like what we can do to repurpose it and to give it an extra boost in terms of this value. And this is it's actually done by a local craftsman.
She's a textile. She's actually a textile designer, graduated from UK, and we work together in this project. And we've been having so much fun working on this. Like I actually helped them out with doing some of the stitchings in this. So we were kind of like hands-on. Collaboration is one big. It's a big word for our studio. We love to work together with other makers, artisans, and so on. So I think it's time for me. This is our latest baby. This is the youngest one from our rooster. It's called Fred Helly. It's a retail company, focuses on sustainable products, designed for local modern consumers, made with Indonesian natural sources and local craftsmen and artisans. So basically, this is our response to another frustration of how come we couldn't find any good design everyday domestic objects that are actually made in Indonesia, and it looks very, I mean, like sometimes you know, when you said things that are upcycled or recycled, it will actually look like it's recycled from nothing. That's the challenge that we want to have here, that we want to have a different kind of products. So we came out with Fred Helly, where we work together with for instance, the picture on the left, that hand broom and dustpan set is actually made from, again, from the offcuts of the local teak furniture manufacturer in Central Java. And this, we work with this person who actually worked in this remote village, and he worked a lot with his friends who are farmers, and a lot of them actually, when they're not harvesting, they usually go to the big cities working as construction workers or any other labor, hard labor work, to have more income. So for him, it's actually to be able to bring work into the village is a really big deal. So these farmers, they don't have to go out from their village to get more money. So it's another, like, we're trying to help them to bring the money to the from the city to the village, instead of them going to the city. And then also we work together with a local artisan. She's one of famous potter in Indonesia. Her name is Ayu Larasati, and she is one of the first young potter who's really how do you call this? She's a artisan activist. She's an activist for artisans. So we work together on developing like domestic products, like, you know, some this, we call this product the breakfast trinity, which is consists of like butter bells, the ones on the right, and citrus juicer and egg holder. So it's been doing really well, and we designed this together as two studios during the pandemic, during the lockdown, via WhatsApp. This is what we came up with. And then also the picture on the third picture from the left, it's actually a little stool, what we call it in Indonesian dingklik. It's like the stool that we usually use doing like some house chores, while we have to like crouch down and then just sit closer to the ground. I think it's a very cultural thing in Indonesia, that when people do some house chores, like if they're just like when they trying to bath their pets, they like to sit closer to the ground, and this is the kind of like stool that we use. It's a very cultural thing. And the stool is actually, again, made from the offcuts of the furniture manufacturer in Malang, which is in the Eastern Java. And this wood shop is actually owned by this young guy who is not even 30 years old. He came back, he went to design school in Jakarta, and he came back to his little town in Malang, and he opened this workshop for him to be able to create more job opportunities in the village. And he's a very is a very talented product designer. So one day I asked him, so with all this like furniture that you design and you do, what do you do with your offcuts? So through WhatsApp, because of the pandemic, we discussed about things that he can make, and this is one of them, this small little mini stool. And then we're coming up with other things like those Japanese wooden slippers and some other, you know, fun things that coming up. I can't really say much yet, but again, yeah, we would like to work together with people who actually already have this the facilities, and trying to get them to, we like to discuss about what can we do differently with all this, like to upcycle stuff. And also the picture next to the stool is actually a hand broom made in the West Java, and we have this opportunity to actually work with several villages in West Java and Central Java. And these two villages, actually, the only craft skill that they have is actually making brooms. That's what they've been doing for many generations. So we try to make it more feasible and easy for people to get. In a way, it's more like I'm trying to introduce this craft to the bigger cities, because all these times either they only export it to Japan or to Europe, or they've been only used by the local people around there. Like not the rest of the country doesn't really know about this. It's kind of sad.
Right. So basically, what we're doing with Helly is we're trying to bridge, help big cities, have access to a lot of these things that's especially of brooms. I mean, I don't think anybody, when they think about brooms, they will think about supermarket or even like Ace Hardware or something like that.
And they're made from plastic.
They're made from plastic. So we're trying to help in raising the awareness that, local products, we have like rattan, we have like, bamboo, and, we have all this like fiber that we can actually work together to create a good product that will last a long time. And I mean, going back to the earth, I think it's still all right. And I think maybe you want to talk about the last one.
Yeah, I think also what we so what from all this thing from this waste, like for instance from the wood waste, what we've been working with all the more broom makers and even like some utensil makers, like the spoon that you see on the right is actually made from the wood's made from salvage in ulin. What is ulin in English? But it's a really hard kind of wood where usually people use it to make boats and wharfs. So those old boats and old wharfs old jetties, sometimes they just throw away the wood about not reusing them. But actually, ulin wood is like so expensive, so they reclaim that, and some of these people from Bali, they make these utensils made from ulin.
Right.
The next one is the fabric waste. I happen to have lots of friends from the fashion industries, and last time during the pandemic, last year, early during lockdown, I asked them like, because we have so much time in our hand, right? So I've been like calling people asking, do you have any fabric waste? Do you have any fabric scrapes? What do you do with these fabric scrapes and all the rejects? Because a lot of these like big manufacturing facilities, they will reject like bad bulks and bulks of fabrics, like rolls of them. Actually, they just stay in the storage. They don't do anything about it. So I asked them, how about if you just send them to me, and then let's see what I can do with them. And we made some aprons from them. We made some wool covers. We made some napkins and kitchen towels, as well as the wrapper for this organic dish soap that we make.
Right.
So we wrapped up in this beautiful Egyptian cotton material offcuts.
That's used for bed sheets.
That's
right?
actually used for bed sheets from the bed sheets manufacturing. So we try to use as much as we could from this fabric waste.
And so lately we have this fascination of working with plastic. And I know that it's such a touchy subject over here. We have so much plastic waste, and I'm sure like Nick probably has said before, he went to the beach together, and we have friends who does that in Bali. And they come back with like tons of trucks of like loads of like plastic material, mainly plastic bottles, and some fishing lines. But all this waste has to go somewhere. Even like with like here having apartment, because Indonesia is not really well known for their recycling, say the water, our water, so it's really hard to get like water. You cannot drink water from the tap. So there's a lot of like bottles that's used, a lot of like those gallon bottles. So it has to go somewhere after people has finished drinking it. And so we had this opportunity to meet a lot of people actually. So, and trying to collaborate, basically like trying to get all this waste plastic that most people would think that is very, it's worthless, you know, but create it into something new. So on the top right, you will see that you have all this like kind of artwork looking thing. It's basically like infusing plastic with like some of the concrete to create a nice like countertops that you can use for projects or even flooring surfaces. And then behind that, you actually have a Sprite bottle. It has that the kind of dark green that we work with, like this artisan, and he can actually weave everything into like outdoor furniture. So those many tons and tons and tons of like waste that you get from like Sprite bottle, you know, that you can create into this, you know, into this furniture or paneling or anything like that.
So basically what they did is they took all this like Sprite bottle caps, they molded, they
Extruded.
they molded and they extruded the plastic, and they weave the plastic, and this plastics actually can be used for using it for outdoor furniture, right? You can use it to make into planters. You can use it as the facade of a building. You can apply into architecture. So many different things, and some of the stuff that we did in the past also from this extruded plastic is actually those market basket, and also some planters, as well as like our friend in Surabaya, Robris. They've been doing this where they actually mold these plastic caps and plastic waste bottles, and they play around with the colors, and they make like home accessories.
Right. And I mean, like with plastic waste, especially now there's a new movement in Jakarta that, you know, they're trying to limit the amount of plastic bags that people can give out. Now you have to bring your own bag. So this is a perfect opportunity for us in Indonesia to have that kind of movement where we actually have less plastic waste. And what do we do with the rest of the plastic bottles and stuff like that? And this is probably one of the solutions to help bridge the plastic products into the retail market, and using like kind of recycled plastic and then how we can reuse it again. But I think probably we need to re-explore again like how the vast extent of like the plastic use.
So I think as a closure, I think we try in you know how in Indonesia is usually is being the one big exporters of products, but exporting most of the products exclusively abroad while not distributing it locally. Sometimes what put us in the blind, you know, because we don't know that we can actually create something that is so beautiful, really well made, very high quality, with really good price locally and nicely designed. So our aim actually at Fred Helly, we try to make it available for local markets. We try to give the market this good quality, locally proudly made in Indonesia, but with a good price and nicely designed.
Right, and as of course as a local touch, I think it's really important for us to have the kind of the locality. So what people see over here is basically products from the local, and also how people have access to all these products.
I think that's it. Thank you very much.
Wow. Thank you so much, Santi and Humphrey. From your presentations, I think what is really strong is the power of collaboration, and how we designers, artisans, makers, and all the creative forces in this industry is really has the power to be an influencer, has the power to influence the community about how we live and how we behave, and how the impact that our behavior to the society, to the environment. Okay, Galu or Widi, should we go to the question and answer session, or?
Yeah, if you have any questions for the speakers as well, you can ask them.
Okay, I do have a couple of questions for all of you. For Nick first, I want to ask why sustainability is difficult I mean, like, we know the value. Some of us know about the value of about sustainable design, but most of the society tend to go to this linear economy. Like they purchase anything that they see in the market, and they don't think about anything else. What they get in the market, that is what they use. Uh, I mean, can you explain like how can we make the movement or the perception about sustainable design bigger and acceptable?
Well, yeah, thank you, Eugene. I think, and again, you know, Zanti Humphrey, really inspiring work. So thank you very much for sharing that. I think, well, I mean, I think their work exemplifies how we go about this, and it's about, as I mentioned early on, it's appealing to the cultural side, the social side of the way that we think and we behave. And I think many consumers don't really think about what they're doing, and you know, aren't necessarily considering their role in the journeys of these materials. You know, we have in the UK we have recycling systems, and we've established a kind of sense amongst communities that recycling is very important, but actually recycling rates in the UK are going down now. And a lot of that is to do with perception. And Zanti and Humphrey talked a bit about perception as well. And I think these things are really important. So, for example, in the UK, people consider that materials are being leaked into the ocean. They're not being managed and handled properly by local authorities and the businesses that handle the materials. And also there we have negative stories about our waste being shipped to other countries where they're not necessarily handled appropriately or properly, and then they're just burnt anyway. So what it becomes is it becomes a kind of politic again of kind of stories and storytelling and perception. So creating products in the way that Humphrey and Zanti do and that we talk about is very key to kind of establishing new narratives through materials in a way that make these kind of connections very, very tangible. And again, that's what makers do. We make very complex things very simple to engage with and interact with. They remain sophisticated, and your products are very sophisticated, but they hold a kind of meaning and an association to people that's very tangible. And I think that's why as makers we're so important at connecting, as I say, this material element, but also this social and cultural element. And as I say, with Gant and Humphrey, that what's incredible is this notion of sort of building this sort of cosmopolitan localism, this notion of local aspiration within cultures, which again is very, very important. So materials stay local, opportunities, as you say, stay local, but the aspiration is still very much connected to the world and this idea, this more expansive idea of sustainability and us protecting our environment internationally. So I think this is really, really critical and very much underplayed, this relationship now between local and international that can be very much aspirational and powerful. And I think as makers, you know, these guys just demonstrate how clearly that could be achieved through material language and that kind of communication, which is universal. I hope that goes some way to answering your question.
Thank you so much. How about you guys, Auntie and Humphrey?
What was the question? What was the question again? Sorry.
People are tend to go to the linear economy, like they purchase anything that they see on the store. They don't think beyond that, especially like circular economy. Some of them maybe don't understand about the values.
Right, exactly. That's why we make products to be very attractive looking, because a lot of people, they just don't want to think. They don't care about a lot of information that they don't really have that knowledge yet. They just don't know. That's why we switch the narrative to be, we create something that is beautiful, functional, but you know what, actually it's made from upcycled this and that, which is good for the environment, which is actually it's you know, it's helping out with the circular economy, blah blah blah. So we try to switch it on the other way around first. So a lot more people will be actually joining this without them really realizing that they are already, participating in this.
Yeah, agree. I also agree with the movement that you do in Fred Helly. Like you create product that is beautiful, with essential and yet beautiful, so people want to buy, so people jump into the concept. But I also, when I went traveling to the rural area of the Indonesia, and then I found it totally the opposite. People there. Uh, there is not they use banana leaves, or sometimes they use something that is natural or organic within their everyday life, but I see a lot of plastic, uh, like mineral water, plastic from snacks and everything being thrown out to the river, to the swamp, and everything uh, around their neighborhood. uh, do you think that the concept that you are trying to offer is only appealing to the cosmopolitan people, but not necessarily to the rural people, because they think and behave differently?
Yes, absolutely. They do think, and they think differently. But I think it's more into education, yeah, and how to get them to be aware about all this thing, how to be aware of their nature. Because when I was working with one of the brush maker, the one who worked together with all these farmers, when they saw what I did with the products and the way I merchandise them, and we designed the products together, they were like, oh, I didn't know that such a very simple thing can look very different and can look so much more expensive looking than the usual. So, and then they also like, it's about how do you make them think. I think we just have to show them that, it has always been, we have to open a conversation, we have to open the discussion, always. Maybe it's just because they're not aware of all these things, but once we show them, I think they'll understand the value about taking care of the nature, the value of preserving all the old ways of doing things. Yeah, I think they need somebody from the outside to really tell them this, because they've been they've been there like for all of their life, right? Because sometimes they need a fresh perspective from the outside, and vice versa. It's the same thing with us. We need a fresh perspective from people who live in a different place than us, to have a different way of thinking.
Could I say something? Is that
Sure.
sure? I mean, again, I think this is a real challenge, isn't it, that you point out, Eugene? And I think, different cultures have different perceptions about how nature can cope, and how nature is powerful and may overcome the things that we do. So maybe it doesn't matter. But again, I think this goes back to why it's so important for Fred Helly as a brand, and the kind of the language that comes out, the important messages that come out from your products. They help to, like you say, to reestablish a whole range of complex things to do with not only the importance and the value of those materials and what they can become, and just seeing the translation between an old bottle and then a beautiful planter and a woven material that connects to the, again, it goes back to that notion of how you beautifully connected the traditions and the familiarity of the established material cultures that were part of your country, but you represent them in a way that, like I say, is very much about modern ideology and modern understanding. And I think those things are very, very powerful. A government can legislate, demand people do things. But I think what your products do help to really provide a level of education, as well as they do, actually deal with the technical problem. And I think, the more that organizations like yours and the many others around the world that, we're trying to do this, I think the more opportunity comes for more and more communities to learn about breaking out of the current circumstances they're in and understanding their role in helping to make that change. So by collecting the bottles, there may be an opportunity for that village to turn that into something that's a viable opportunity. And that in many ways is more powerful, I think, than people like me or poking them in the forehead and telling them they must change, you know. Your products represent the value of that change and the value of that transition in lots of complex ways. And I think that's, you know, that's the way to do it. I think you're really leading something that's very powerful.
Okay, I agree. I totally agree. And connect what you guys already said. Do you think that the people or the community need to be prepared first, or they need to be influenced first? Like what Santi and Humphrey did is they influence people. But what if the community or the people there is not ready?
I think, you know, what is it to be ready? I suppose ready for change, ready for, as I say, I think, you know, do people, you know, this is a big question, right? But do people meaningfully go out into their environment to spoil it, to destroy it? I'm not sure they do. I think it's just limited understanding or really awareness, as Antti pointed out, about the impacts of what they're doing. And if that's seen as normal or okay, you know, then that needs to change. You know, it comes with the education. And again, back, I know I'm repeating myself. Sorry, I'm hearing quite a lot of noise. I hope that isn't my microphone. But I guess the important thing is to create readiness, right? To create the environment that that gives people inroads and understanding about how they can make change and why it's important to make change. And as was pointed out earlier on, this word opportunity, I think, is really, really critical. I think that's very, very different to sort of a personal expectation or readiness to impact on one's environment, because I think people often cannot see their relationship to the big environment and the big problem. Whereas if you create a local opportunity, you can see where that change happens. And it's very immediate. You take bottles from here and you turn them into something here, and then opportunity makes a difference in terms of education, in terms of changes in your neighborhood, and all of these kind of things. And that notion of community and working in that scale in a local thing is very, very powerful. And you can still contribute to a world issue, you know, but do it through small mechanisms. And again, that's the material that makes that bind, makes that connection in people's minds and behaviors. So I'm not sure that people aren't ready to change. I think they just need to be given the opportunity to change and to see the value of it that way. And again, that's why it's so powerful to have organizations taking a lead in that role.
Okay. How about Santi and Humphrey?
I think we I agree with what Nick just said, but I have to add that actually usually by how to get them to be ready is by showing them the economical value of it. So that's always been the easiest. It's a good motivation. Like, for instance, when I work with these craftsmen, I don't really haggle. I don't haggle for any whatsoever. Whatever price they ask, I'm sure that is a really fair price for them because they know what they're doing. And I never haggle. I think that's one thing that is very important, saying that what they do is very appreciated economically also, and also as a, you know, I really thank them for doing the kind of beautiful work that they do. That's one thing that they wanted. There's the sense of appreciation from us, people who's trying to, you know, who buys the products from them, who actually, we also try to design things together. And I really appreciate his input because he's more technical in a lot of ways. I give him inputs in terms of like how something could look a bit more refined in design. and more attractive. So I think that relationship really what they really values, and that what really makes them ready for change.
See,
I think.
that's a good point too. Speaking of economy, like economical aspect of it, you mentioned it before. So, don't you think like if we are going to do a repurposed material, let's say a wood, if we want to use again a scrap of wood, we need to like treating the wood like multiple times, and so the cost of the treatment is higher, and eventually the cost of the material at the end is so much higher than the original wood. Is it correct?
Not really in that case. So when you're selecting, you have to see what is the scrap of wood look like. So from that look, you have to think about what kind of design that you can do from those scraps. So you don't have to go through all this like process that is actually almost like if it has to go through too much process, it's kind of pointless in a way, you know. It might actually leave more carbon footprint. So we have to see what is it available, what can you do from those waste that you can make something. Maybe like for instance, like one day this person, the craftsman I'm working with, this bapa is like, ma'am, I think we don't have bigger wood scraps in this month. Can we do a smaller design for the brushes? Can we come up with smaller brushes design? Then we came up with something new. So for instance, like, okay, let's create brushes for nails. That's because it's really tiny and nice, because that's the only like wooden scraps that they have. They have smaller ones. So, okay, let's do that. Or one time we had like, oh, we have all this like odd sizes, like wood, and like, okay, can we do something like a mini kid size, like cleaning set? Oh yeah, then that's what we make those cleaning sets for kids, you know. So we just have to be very creative and looking at what kind of waste that they have at the moment, you know. It's almost like in a restaurant, what is the catch of the day? And how are you gonna cook it?
So creative then.
Yeah.
That's a really nice analogy. I'm going to use that to really catch of the day.
It's a seasonal. What do you? What we have is the strawberry season. We're gonna use strawberry and everything.
That's from the farm.
Today.
From the farm.
Could I just say as well? I mean, I think what I found so inspiring about your work as well is when we look at those kind of what is seen as those three pillars within the circular economy. I think what's very interesting about some of the work that's going on in the different countries that the British Council have been working, but also with you guys, is that third pillar, the regeneration of natural environments, I think is one of the key challenges. In some ways, looking after our materials, keeping them within circular systems, even the big companies are doing that to protect their assets, to protect their commodities. But I think the relationships between the natural environment, these are the next big questions that we really need to answer. And I think your rubber products and looking at the rubber woods, I think there's a very interesting thing to discover there about whether products can really support biodiversity and really champion relationships between sustainable agriculture and forestry. For example, in Europe, we have the cork forests, which are one of very few examples of where human beings can have a sustainable economy and the environment can better and species can thrive. And I think you're indicating with the rubber products there's something that I think is almost the fundamental thing we think about when sustainability. We think we're protecting the environment, but actually very few products really do that, I think, in a very direct way. I think a lot of it is about mitigating human behavior, so taking plastics from here to plastics to there. Very few products actually directly show this relationship between nature and human beings and human activity. And I think that's, in a way, what we might call the holy grail, of understanding. So I think that's a very, very powerful thing to tap into. And I think wood obviously has a real part to play in exploring the narratives around human production, human opportunity, but also natural environments and protection. And I'm sure there are models there that we could champion and exploit further.
Okay. Nick, because you work with so many companies, can you share with us what is the biggest challenges in creating a more sustainable environment for their companies?
Wow. Okay.
Always the human aspect, or the technology.
I would say it's the human aspect. I think in large companies, which are effectively, often a big community, leadership is so important. And unfortunately, in the way that companies are traded, in the same way that materials are traded, leadership can change quite frequently. And I think sustaining leadership around sustainability when organizations change their leadership is really important. So you may have one individual who feels very passionate about making the right change, and then when they go, that change can be diluted and so on. So I think maintaining leadership at the top level is really, really important. In terms of circular economies and sustainabilities, I mean, businesses are very aware of their relationship to their commodities, perhaps more aware than we think. And so circular economies, in many respects, the idea of circular economy and what is quite powerful about is it, in some ways, it can fit big businesses well. And again, we have quite a few examples where big business leads the way with circular economies because they're protecting their commodity. But that also raises questions about who owns all the stuff, right? Who owns all the rare metals? Who owns all the plastics? In a way, the environment might not care if big business does it well. And in many respects, we should support big businesses doing it well because, the proportionate impact of doing it well is proportionately improved. If a big company goes from being 0% sustainable to 50% sustainable, that's probably likely to be a very good thing. But, it does raise questions about, like I say, the situation around, democratic access to materials and opportunities for us all to make those kind of changes. But as I say, I think in terms of technology, I think the technology is there in the most part. We can already make the fashion business more sustainable, and circular economy models are there and already in use. And a lot of the big companies are committing, due to legislation or commercial competition or consumer expectation, changing into more circular economies, or because they want to look after their materials. But I think how much they want to really promote what good can come from it, I don't know. And whether, circular economies mean that companies can still behave very much in the way they have done historically, but sort of present it slightly differently. I think that's something we need to, hold them to account for and make sure that just because we're making things from recycled materials, that everything else that sits around that is also sustainable socially, environmentally, and economically. So I think in big organizations it is happening, whether it's at a pace we would like. Legislation can help move that forward, customer demand can help that forward, but I think leadership is really, really critical.
Okay. Thank you so much for the you just said about the leadership and how to influence people with a more positive behavior. Okay, I'm going to jump to the questions from. Okay, there's a couple of questions being asked here for you guys. The first thing, there's no name here, but it is interesting to see more products from recycled materials that are well designed. How do you think producers or makers could collaborate with designers to create a well-designed product? With what are some of the things designers need to learn before recycling? Example, technology to make sure the recycling process is done properly and not create even more waste. Do you guys understand the questions, or should I Let me see.
So your sound was a little bit muffled from our
Yeah,
end here.
your sound is a bit muffled.
Okay, it is interesting to see more products from recycled materials that are well designed. How do you think producers or makers could collaborate with designers to create well-designed products?
Okay.
With what are some of the things designers need to learn before recycling to make sure the recycling process is done properly and not create even more waste? Maybe this person wants to ask about how the collaboration is going to how the process of collaboration is going to be.
I mean, you mean the process of collaboration between makers and designers?
Yes, maybe that.
Okay. So I'll just share you my experience, my own experience, I guess. Well, when we started Fred Helly, I actually searched the hell of the internet basically and learned about this maker, and then I talked to them prior to do any collaborations, like to make sure like what they're doing is actually something that is not creating another problems. Yeah, but like the key is basically you just have to do your homework first. You
Research.
just do, yeah, you have to research, you have to do your homework first, and then from then on you need to understand how you collaborate. There's a human aspect to it as well. In terms of collaboration, you need to know how this person is, what are their skills, what kind of stuff that we can contribute to this, you know, this collaboration. So we have to try to learn to understand each other, like strengths and weaknesses and our skills. How do we combine those? I think those are the key as well.
Empathize then.
Sorry?
Empathize.
Yeah, empathize. That's a really big word when you do collaboration, especially with people you've never met. You know, from until now, I never met my brush maker, even though we WhatsApp each other a lot, even on a weekend at night. we do like some redesigning things at night.
She's with her other work husband.
So I have many work husbands
That's nice.
around in Indonesia.
I
And
clocked
then-
out at 5.
Yeah, he clocked out at 5, and then I work a lot with other husbands.
But I think also, I mean, again, your products to really, again, in a very you know, literate way, present that collaboration beautifully well. Yeah, because your work presents that wisdom, you know, that deep wisdom of the maker is inherent in your objects, right? They all have that aesthetic quality that really helps people to understand the value of making. You know, you can see how these things are made and put together in a way that's both sophisticated and simplified to understand at the same time. And that's so sophisticated. You know, I mean, these kind of products, you know, we don't know how these are made. They don't tell us how they're made. They're just black boxes, right? You take the logo off and there's nothing there, right? It's just a box.
Okay. Can be anything.
Your product, and they all look the same, right? It doesn't matter the brand, they're all pretty much the same. Your products all tell this story about the relationship between that deep culture of the maker, the deep understanding and the material of the maker, and bring that into a kind of contemporary discussion. And I think that's all housed within those objects. And that collaboration becomes manifest, you know, the collaboration is there in the object. It's you know, and it's the thing of beauty. It's very powerful.
Yes, I agree. Fred Helly products are really relevant and it's beautiful. So that's why people jump into the concept.
Yeah.
Okay. We have another questions. In these current pandemic situations, where we are required to use masks, as we know that the recommended mask is the disposable surgical mask. Do you think there's a possibility in create product from this mask waste?
Yes.
I'm sure.
I'm sure there is, but we don't know yet. I was thinking about this the other day, but yeah.
I was just Googling it, sorry. And of course, there are other search engines, but TerraCycle face masks turned into new materials. Yeah, I mean, there are a number of organizations that have obviously locked into this straight away. But yeah, I mean, of course, like anything else, it's a composite set of materials that probably have a level of complexity to them. I don't know whether they're all made from one single fiber or not. If they are, then obviously potentially that might make them easier. You know, as we know, any composite materials that need disassembling and taking apart, you know, that may well be a problem. So hopefully they're made from one singular material. But it's a good question. But yes, I mean, but also what I find interesting again from the kind of culture is how do people connect to materials that are connected to things that we may think are dirty or dangerous? And again, that's something that could be used by designers to be a provocation. So you turn them into something that's very poetically connected to that idea of danger, or putting us back to something that connects to nature. So again, there are narratives and stories that makers can explore around the use of that material, which could be very powerful, very political, very emotive.
Yeah,
Well,
I was thinking the other day actually, like, because the material of the masks, it could be something like they can do something like Tyvek, you know, those construction sheets, maybe something like that, you know, or something that has to do for acoustic panelings, you know. Yeah, I had that thought the other day. It could be maybe if you turn this into something, yeah, for building construction material.
It's quite problematic.
It is problematic.
That's why
maybe
it's
we
a big one.
like a brick, maybe.
Brick, it could be brick, could be any insulation material, you know. It could be, because these fibers are actually pretty good insulator.
Yeah, it's an interesting challenge, I think, for all of us to think about the surgical mask.
Ooh, what did you find? What is that?
That looks like a large brick made
Oh,
from at
There you
a
go.
hospital,
oh wow, look at that.
the Royal Cornwall Hospital in the Isles of Scilly, which are way off the coast of England.
There you go.
There you go.
Brick. You can make
Okay,
brick.
we go to the next question. This pandemic made me realize that previously our daily activity are somehow unhygienic. Is it possible to make products with sustainable materials capable of sanitizing itself? Something like the stainless steel soap.
Well, what's the name?
It's more challenge.
Well, stainless
Okay.
steel itself is actually, you can repurpose stainless steels, right?
That's easily.
It's easily melted, and then you just can reuse them, right? You can make them into something
But let's
else.
ponder upon that.
Aw.
I mean, I think some woods have beneficial kind of microbial behaviors anyway. I mean, I think that's why historically we've made chopping boards from wood.
Yeah.
I don't know, but I think there is some benefit in using certain woods for protection. You can actually put microbial sterilizing capacity into some plastics. So some plastics are designed to protect against, you know, microbial activity. You know, that there are some acrylics you can buy that are put in hospitals that do that, but I don't know how beneficial to nature that is ultimately. That may well be creating as many problems as it solves. I don't know.
Virgin coconut oils, they are actually pretty good, and they use that a lot for some skin problems to get rid of germs, and it's a natural antibiotic. Oh no, what do you call it? It's actually, that's why people have been using coconut oil for their wooden, you know, for chopping boards and all that stuff, to clean the chopping boards. Some natural oils has that properties.
I'm not familiar.
Yeah,
with the oil. The witch doctor here.
that's challenging.
Which doctor?
Yeah, I like playing around with oils. So essential oils. Some essential oils has that property. So yeah, I'm the witch doctor here. There's a lot of like herbs and oils and anything that comes from plants. Actually, they can do that. It's biodegradable.
Okay, let's go to the next question from YouTube. From Ira, have you applied cultural elements in creating eco products? If so, how do you do it?
Cultural?
Cultural elements in creating eco products.
All my brooms are traditional brooms. Those are like how this is how our grandmas used to use all those brooms, and they're disappearing. So I'm trying to get those back into the market. So a lot, a lot of that stuff.
I think I mean, our material cultures are changing, and I suppose the example we showed of for example, the flip-flops, so taking the plastic from the ocean and putting it in a shoe, that creates a new material culture of aspiration, of understanding about the relationship between waste and the marine environment. But I guess what we were trying to show there is that the act of collecting the materials and the act of people being involved perhaps in the making generates a kind of cultural value in and of itself. And the joy of being a maker in this kind of context is there's so many opportunities to curate and create new cultures, actually craft cultures that may be based on tradition or new technology, but I guess in many respects we're resampling and remixing in a way that you might do with music or other cultural reference points, but doing it in a way that, as you said, Eugene, makes products that are relevant, but hold all of that culture in place. So I think, like you say, Fred Helly products, they to me they smack. The culture is there. You cannot miss it. But as I say, it's repositioned in a way that's relevant and to new contemporary cultures, material cultures, and that seems really critical. So it's essential. Culture, creativity, makers, craft, and culture, those things all go hand in hand. It's absolutely essential. As I said, we can already recycle plastics. We already know how to use wood in a sustainable way, but it's culture that drives that change, and getting that culture into the products is absolutely critical.
If I might add, actually, one of my friends, he owns this initiative called Handep. He came from Kalimantan, and he came from this tribe from central Kalimantan. So he's a Dayak boy, and he actually went to university in Melbourne. And when he came back home, he had this initiative called the Handep Harui, which means working together hand in hand as a family. And from time to time, I'll get products from them, such as like really beautifully woven rattan, woven by the indigenous Dayak people from his village, and he sold them like for a really, really good price, like fair price. And every time it hits my store, within 2 or 3 weeks, it's gone. So I don't really even have the time to really take picture of them to post them, because I don't need to post them because they're always, because they can only like produce so much. And the reason why he did this initiative, because there's less and less forest, and there's more and more the forest area being mined. So there's less and less rattan, natural rattan that's been used to make these beautiful crafts they're actually almost endangered. To raise any awareness to the world outside of the Kalimantan island and city people. So, and it's a very interesting initiative that he got, because the design that they produce is so relevant to the modern world. even though they're actually made by the indigenous people. And I learned so much about how their designs actually, each tribe will have their own type of patterns and shapes of baskets, and because that's how they identify themselves. So if you met somebody from another tribe, if you met somebody in the middle of the woods, you will know that person coming from which tribe because they're wearing this kind of outfit with this kind of like design pattern on their basket. It's becoming their identity. So it's a very interesting story that I can actually tell when people ask about this and give them the awareness that, hey, are you aware that our forest is getting depleted day
Right.
after day?
But I think because rattan is also like this it cannot be farmed, so it has to be in the wild. So that's why it's so necessary for us to preserve the forest.
Right. And then also he every time he comes to Jakarta, he can only like bring only a certain amount of these baskets, and they're always flying off the shelf super fast. Yeah.
So material and design is really essential as a communication device, maybe.
Yeah, cultural preservation and nature as well.
I think one of the things that makes the product successful is also because although the inspiration is from traditional aspect, like the pattern is really traditional, but you guys make the product more relevant to this era. Like people in the city will use it basket, but with what kind of basket? I can see it in my house, in my working area. So that point is what become the bridge to the modern society, I guess.
Right.
Okay, we come to the next question. We have a lot of questions here. Have you both create product with cable waste? Maybe to Santi, Humphrey, and then go to Nick.
Have you what? Have you what?
Have you both create products with cable waste?
Cable.
Cable.
Ooh, cable.
Cable or table?
Cable.
Cable. C.
Cable.
Oh, well, I know where the breadcrumbs are going.
Cable. It gets me thinking. I never really done anything with cable waste. Actually, never yet. Not yet. Not yet.
Well, I don't know if you guys remember this, but back in the days, they usually made bracelet and a necklace out of cable.
Right. And actually, we've seen it in some of the manufacturer from three forms where they actually injected that kind of bracelet from the copper bracelet into kind of like the wall paneling.
Right, Treeform, that company.
Yes.
It's all acrylic though.
It's all acrylic. Yeah. Yeah, I think we've seen that one. So they using a lot of this cable scraps, right, to be decorative paneling for interior architecture.
Yeah, but that's an interesting thing. Maybe we should look into that. But copper is quite pricey, so I'm sure people will try to want to recycle the copper or to reuse it. Yeah.
Yeah, copper. Well, I can make pots and pans out.
maybe the plastic that's surrounding the copper probably.
I think that's the thing, isn't it? Because the plastic around the copper, as you say, Humphrey, quite often in countries where locally the copper's been recycled, the plastic is just burnt off it, and so you end up with kind of a health problem where people are just burning the plastic. So if the plastic can be stripped off, of course that can be recycled. But the copper, as you say, the value is going up and up and up.
Right.
Right.
Have you worked before with cable scrap? Nope. All right.
The cables, no. But we could work with the plastic off it quite easily. But as you say, copper is just too valuable. That would just go straight back into the supply chain.
You can make it as your flip flop, right? For your flip flops.
Idea. Thank you for giving an idea for us. Okay. Next question from Patricia Jocelyn. What kind of technique do you use to transform the plastic waste into decorative products.
Decorative products.
Decorative products. So she wants to ask about the techniques that's being used.
Oh, how do you do it, Nick?
Well, we tend to use, it depends on the material, because I mean, we've made products from dog hair, from waste dog hair, from
Rumors.
you know, carpet tiles, or it kind of, you know, it's a mentality that these guys, I'm sure, are very familiar with. You sort of, you know, you have to become a little bit of a material scientist and sort of understand how things are made. And this is why it's so important. We learn to be makers, and that we keep craft education in schools and colleges, because then you understand how you can look at an object and take it apart and understand what part of it can be recycled. But the kind of techniques we tend to use, we use historically, we use quite a lot of thermoplastics, so you know, plastics that respond to heat. So where we use extruders. Probably our most versatile technique we have is an old t-shirt press. It's a brilliant way of educating people how to take an old carrier bag or food packaging, you warm it up, you press it, and there you have another kind of fabric or material that you can do something with. And that's probably the most versatile piece of equipment we have, and it's something you can buy secondhand on eBay pretty cheaply. And you can do a lot with it, because you can create new fabrics from lots of different types of plastics. And in some of the maker spaces that we've helped set up, that's proved to be a really pivotal product. And then obviously, if you look at like the precious plastic movement or Dave Hackin's big kind of worldwide campaigns, you know, there are lots of different plans out there for how to make simple injection molders or extruders and that kind of thing. But it really depends on the materials. As I say, we've been just as interested in working with recycled natural fibers, things like straw and agricultural waste, as well as we have plastic. So it really just depends on what kind of material you have. But again, like I say, we're not material scientists per se. We work from a craft mentality, which is you learn how to make with materials, and then you know how to remake with materials.
Yeah. I want to ask you something, Nick. Working with plastic and heated plastic.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong. The fume that come out from the plastic, isn't it dangerous for the environment?
Yeah, it can be. I think again, it's one of those continuous questions we need to ask ourselves: is how do we protect the environment whilst making use of these materials? Because as we know, the ways, you know, there's a lot of plastics out there in the world, and what can we do with it? We can either bury it and wait a long, long time. We can either burn it and put that pollution directly into the atmosphere as a hot gas, which is where it's most problematic, or we can warm it up. And the difference between warm, hot, and burnt is quite critical. So again, that's where you need to understand the relationship between understanding, you know, how to make with certain plastics, how to get them to a temperature where they off gas, but they don't create poisonous fumes. And there's a critical difference. You know, when you burn plastics, that's when you create poisonous gases. So in our laboratories, we do have airing cupboards and we do have ventilation. Generally speaking, the gas that's given off, if you're not very, very close to where it's hot, isn't necessarily a problem. But again, you know, on all levels, people need to be looking after themselves and understanding the implications of what it is they're doing. Sometimes you do see examples of people melting plastic, literally almost to a liquid. And generally speaking, that's not necessarily to be recommended, I would say, and you know, you can create kind of pollution. So again, it's about the maker understanding at what level they're working at. And again, if you soften plastics to a point where they become malleable, then that can be relatively safe. Still not perfect, but it's when you start burning materials or overheating them that it becomes really problematic. But yeah, it's something you need to be concerned around. But these materials are here. We need to know how to deal with them. They're not going away, so we have to learn how to behave as safely as we can around them. That's really important.
Yeah, I think that's what some of my friends who we sell their products made from those recycled plastics. Basically, they chop off all the plastic components and then they heat it to at one point. I think they put like somewhat like they put it in the oven to be malleable, to be somewhat easier to press into some kind of like mold and into a product. So I think that's what they did. I think it's quite safe, that one. Yeah.
But again, this comes back to the hierarchies, you know, of if we can reuse the materials and remanufacture them to the point where they don't need heating. So your weaving methods, taking the material where it doesn't need to be reheated. It's great. And again, the problem with chipping materials and recycling is you can also create waste inadvertently, you know, small pellets of material. I think, again, even just cutting up sheets of recycled material creates dust. And if you don't look after that dust, that can leach into the environment. So, you know, we have to treat plastics with a deal of care throughout the whole system. And for some people, that would be, well, why you may choose other materials to work with. And of course, that can be really important too. But like I say, we have a lot of plastics in the world, and we need to refine that resource and make good use of it, so that it just doesn't become, you know, another pollutant. It's not going away.
Right.
I agree. Okay, the next question is for Santi and Humphrey. The question for Santi and Humphrey is, are there any platforms that facilitate makers and designers collaborations in Indonesia?
Are there what? Sorry, your sound is a bit muffled.
Are there any platforms that facilitate makers and designers collaborations in Indonesia?
Actually, the government was trying to do that, but I don't know, after Backcraft's gone, I think that's also long gone as well.
Yeah, I'm sure you have first-hand
I
experience.
think you have
right?
first-hand experience on that one. So we decided to do it our own. You know, we just do it our own. We're renegades here. You know, we don't like depend on anyone. We make our own platform.
We make baby steps.
That's why we have design up close, no?
Oh, design
Oh,
Right?
yes, girls, exactly. We're mentoring the two girls, right? There's two
Yeah,
designers.
that's what we've been doing. I think we've two of the mentees that we have is right now under tutelage of Santi and Humphrey to actually create what call it market ready prototypes, right?
Right, we are making
that's
now.
Yeah, that's the progress that we have at this point in time.
We just do it ourselves, right, Charles?
Exactly.
The answer is Design Up Close and Domisilium Studio.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. We go to the next questions. This is for you guys, both of you. Why is sustainable material not booming? Is it because it hasn't met the economic scale? Nick?
Well, I would say I would perhaps challenge whether it's booming or not. Again, you know, not trying to be kind of evasive with my answer, but you know, a lot. When you look at, for example, in the UK, we have an organisation called the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, and they work with very large companies on developing their circular economy methods. And a lot of those companies are committing to be fully circular economies by certain dates. So some of those companies are the ones that if you went to any metropolitan city in the world, you would be able to find their products in their big stores. And if they become fully circular economies, then you may not even know you're wearing a more sustainable material or not. So I guess it's how you define a sustainable material. I mean, are any materials sustainable when we think in terms of 100% sustainability? But in terms of better materials, it's complex. And I think I'm not sure that they haven't taken off. I think, you know, the future is very much geared towards this way of thinking, I hope, and I think large, like I say, large corporations and these kind of micro, you know, mass micro businesses that we talk about at a local level do it all together, then I think it all adds up, you know. And I think the future is very, very positive from that point of view. So I'm not sure that they haven't taken off. I think, you know, that's the future of us managing our resources, really.
Okay. How about you guys?
I think even the notion of like sustainability is actually relatively new here in Indonesia, right? So I think we're working our way there. I mean, we're just getting people to be aware of it first, consciously or unconsciously. I think that's just our way of like making baby steps towards the goal.
Yeah, that's why we're making Fred Helly, right? They will actually will participate, like aware or not participate just because they're buying the beautiful stuff from us. You know, that's one way to do it. Because a lot of time when people said it's sustainable and all that stuff, it's so funny that some people actually kind of shy away from that, thinking that something that is made from trash is less in value, right? Or less in quality. So education is one thing by educating our market. And because we cannot really like educate them one by one, we just educate them from the look of the, you know, the design, the products itself. So to get them interested first, and then we can actually talk to them when they're hooked. We just get them hooked first with the look.
All right.
You want topics first?
Yeah, peacocking first.
Let them aware. Okay, we go to the next question from Sujanto Tanu. The idea of changing people's mind is to have a balance between art and cost. It has been always a problem of arts and craft.
Yeah, yes, I would agree. Yeah, that's the balance to be struck, right? I mean, that's where craft and design education is so important, because we learn that how to construct and form those questions and form answers to those questions. It's art and science combined. And the relationship to how we consider value is intrinsic to that. You know, when we think about materials like gold, you know, gold is valuable in the world, right? If there's an economic crash, the finances of the world buy gold. But why is gold valuable? What is gold's material qualities that make it so valuable to us? It's culture, it's history, it's tradition, it's our relationship to the way that gold carries meaning through time and through culture. Of course, it has material properties, and of course, it's rare, but a lot of things are rare in the world. But they don't necessarily, they're valuable. It's our culture that constructs that value. And I think, you know, the relationship between how craftspeople and makers translate that art and use art to generate value, of course, it's what we do. That's, you know, fundamental to everything we do as a maker, whether it's functional value or artistic or expressionistic value. So again, that's why, again, over in the UK where I'm based, we deeply worry about the loss of making, the loss of creative education in our educational systems over here. These things are so important. They're so important to the future of how we manage carbon emissions, because it's about learning how to correlate and create relationships between people and their products through this relationship between value, perhaps rather than just cost, and arts and culture. It's a critical thing.
Yeah, you want to add something, Santi and Humphrey?
Humphrey.
So good.
I think we agreed with what Nick just said.
That's the answer. Yeah, I think that's always that's the art of designing. Don't you think? Balancing between the art, the design, the value, and the cost. It's always the field of play for us designers.
Right, and I think even for us in Indonesia, right? I mean, we are losing a lot of the craftsmen, and it's suddenly is of lesser value, of lesser kind of like desired job, or even like, you know, profession.
Yeah, again, because of the perception how locally made crafts are actually lesser value than the imported products. That we have to switch.
Yeah.
I mean, it's about perception again. I mean, people have to know, they have to be educated to what extent that these people need to be skillful to be able to produce this certain kind of like local craft products, you know, and also maybe, how can I say this?
To be blunt, it's like people call like, you know, craftsmen over here tukang, right?
It's
so
like,
we want them to be more like artisan, you know. It's not like workers, but they're
not,
artisans.
but they're actually artisans. I think we need to start calling them more like an artisan than just like
workers,
you know. That will give more value, right? I think that's one of the things that we're fighting here and in Fred Helly. Sometimes from time to time we have people coming to the store saying, why is it so expensive and it's local? Okay, let me give you a piece of my mind here. You know, like I have this conversation with this person, and then at the end of the conversation, she brought like several million worth of stuff. You know, it's almost like somewhat again trying to acknowledge people about all these things, like because a lot of them they don't really understand what kind of skill and efforts being put into producing a set and this one thing, you know, especially those beautiful brooms. It has to be some kind of skillful person to do those brooms, because there's only like the several villages in Indonesia who can do such thing. They only teach the family.
Right. And I mean, the younger generations are leaving now. They want to live in a bigger city, make a better life for themselves. So I mean, we're losing this because, like, you know, people don't see the value in those kind of products.
The economical value of it. Again, going back to the economical value.
Yeah. So
the appreciation.
Hopefully by this, like, we'll have to empower them, at least give them a sense of like pride for their craft, you know?
Exactly.
I mean, creating a broom is an everyday object, but there's also an art to it, you know?
Right.
Absolutely. And again, I go back to this sense of what the products you're creating. Matteo Manzini, who's you know, very celebrated sustainable designer, talks about these notions of cosmopolitan localism, and I think that's what you do. You create the notion of a cosmopolitan product, something that feels aspirational and connected to the rest of the world and fashion and trend, but it's still deeply rooted in those absolutely important things. And it goes back to, you know, I mean, this word cost is a very provocative word, right? Because cost is financial cost, but what we're learning is the cost to the environment, the cost to livelihoods, the cost to the more diverse micro economies that are out there that you're talking about, and the livelihoods at a local level. That's all a cost, and that's a cost of us transferring our ideologies. And we need to, as you say, move back to understanding the value and the aspiration associated to those opportunities that you're creating. You know, it's so important.
Yeah. So yeah, I always add to whoever like complain about how expensive my stuff are. Like what I told them, what you're buying here, it's not just a broom, but you're buying their time, their skill, and everything else, you know, and their culture, you know, to preserve their culture so that they will be able to teach the skill to the younger ones, you know, and to preserve that craftsmanship.
Oh, switching between languages is quite tough for you.
Yeah, I know. My head is just sometimes switching from Indonesian to English, like.
I'm the lucky one.
Okay, the next question would be for Nick. This is also from Sutanto Tanu. What do Nick think about the maturity of Indonesia compared to Britain in terms of arts and material?
Yeah, well, absolutely. There's, you know, what's been fascinating for me and for my colleagues who've been able to participate in a lot of these discussions that we've had during COVID, that remotely, which have been very efficient. We've been learning more and more about this notion again of the value of diversity and the importance of diversity in terms of exactly what we've just been talking about, you know, small artisanal companies, local networks of that relate to ecology and economy. Those are the kind of futures. Like you say, the big imperial companies, the big Leviathan organizations. You know, they absolutely have a role to play. But it's important that we break this down now into different types of scale. And again, it goes back to this notion of aspiration. What do people aspire to do? Do they aspire to be part of a big, giant, homogenized company or brand? Or do they aspire to buy into something that is, you know, a brand, but a brand that's more meaningful and has more character and can support, you know, the kind of ecology and the economies that diversity can offer? And I think we're learning about the importance of diversity in so many ways. And I think obviously, you know, imperial powers are being challenged about this, and it's right that they are, we are. And you know, I've had conversations recently about you know, how can I talk from a Western country about waste when many countries are expected to handle our waste and use our waste. They're also expected to work to produce products at a cost that in a Western society we expect to pay. And again, it goes back to this notion of cost. And these are all absolutely really important things that we need to understand and to rectify and change. But as I say, you know, having worked in these areas for about 25 years now, I can really see that these notions of diversity are where it's at. It's really us understanding now as part of our global connected community to understand difference and local diversity. You know, it's the archipelago of ideas but you know, individual islands and pockets of innovation and creativity that has local meaning and local relevance that's connected to the rest of the world. That for me is the future, rather than monolithic companies that don't connect to people. As I say, I go back to this, you know, I like this product a lot. It does a lot for me in many ways, but you know, it's also in many ways a meaningless product. And I think that's where we need to move away from, you know, the homogeny of meaningless stuff into much more diverse languages, economies, and economies. Sorry, that's a bit of a rant. Sorry, but I hope that made sense.
Yeah, it's really makes sense. Totally. Okay. We have a final question before we wrap up. For the three of you, if we would like to create an eco-friendly product with a material from a specific area, can we also contribute to the economy and cultural aspect in that area? What needs to be considered before starting it?
You guys.
Absolutely. You can contribute. Absolutely. And how to do it? I think you just have to visit that area and getting to know what's going on over there and do your research by hand, you know. You have to get your hands dirty, and that's how you do it, right? I mean, like during COVID, it's harder. I mean, I've been aching to go traveling to see all of these my craft artisans out there from many different parts of Indonesia, from Kalimantan all the way to Bali. But what can I do? I can't really travel much right now, right? If it's not during COVID, I'll be like somewhere, like every 2 days I'll be changing locations, just like you also, Eugene, you do the same thing, right? So I think we just have to be there. I'm aching to do that. Like you the other day, you were telling me you were somewhere in, where were you? Sumatra. Like somewhere in jungle, you know? Right? Gitu kan? Jadi I think you just have to get your hands dirty and feet wet and hands dirty. No, I'm not telling you to kill somebody with your hand dirty. No, I'm not. But, yeah. Your feet wet. Sorry.
I just ran to my kitchen to get a beer, not because it's the weekend and I'm ready to drink, because it's way too early in the morning. Honestly, it is. But I think this is a good example, right? So this is a beer that you know, an alcoholic beverage that is made by, in theory, made by artisanal makers, right? And I think beer is one of those things that certainly in the UK and Europe has really helped to kind of transform the way we think about the things that we consume, right? Because now we buy a beer and it's packaged like any other beer, although it has a branding on it that we may think, well, I don't know what that brand is. It's not like I'm buying it because I know it, because it's Heineken or Foster's, or I don't know it. So now I'm interested. And then what do? I look on the back and I say, where is this made and who made it? And that's the future for beer now. In that's the way we think about beer. So why can't products be the same? You know, why can't we translate that same ideology in a way and make it fashionable, aspirational? And the further this beer is made away from me, the worse it is. The closer it's made to me, the better it is. And of course, especially if the person has a beard and tattoos, and you know, that's
That's an added value, yeah.
Of course, yeah, absolutely. Patronize me about beer as well and tell me something I don't know. So.
Well, the novelty, yeah, it's all about the novelty that we want to get those back again in the future time, because yeah, we're losing more and more of that novelty.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But craft, you know, we took again the beer analogy, but you know, we talk about craft beer, and that's aspirational. So craft products can be the same, and you guys, you know, Fred Helly's that's it. It's housed there. You know, it's the equivalent to the fantastic beer is this notion of connecting people to say, I can see something in that product that I'm familiar with and I connect to. I know it's not a product from a global brand, so I want to know more. I want to understand its relationship to nature, to local economy, local opportunity, all of those things that I would think about in my beer. I want to think about those in my products too.
Yep, agreed. Very well.
Okay, that concludes the session of question and answer. We go back to Weedy and Galu. Thank you guys so much for the.
Thank you, Eugene and Nick. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.
We haven't done it yet. We go back to Galu.
Okay, thank you everyone. Sorry, my video is not starting for some reason. Okay, it started now. Okay, thank you, Mas Eugene, for moderating the whole program. We actually has passed the 2 hours mark. Only 6 minutes passed, but it's okay. Thank you also, Nick, for waking up early and sharing with us of whatever your knowledge and your projects, and to make us more aware of how we can deal with the waste and what we can do with the waste. Also, Chisanti and Ko Humphrey, thank you so much for sharing about how you create an initiative for a sustainable movement. Also here in Indonesia, where it is not very much familiar with our society here. Thank you so much. So for everyone who's watching here, Fred Helly is located at Kumulo BSD. They have a shop there. So if you have time to go, or you are in the Tangerang area, please drop by. Maybe Chisanti or Ko Humphrey is there to greet you.
We also have an appointment-only store in West Jakarta area in Tomang. Appointment only.
Appointment only. See, so is anyone want to go there? Please DM their Instagram. Okay. Thank you so much. Maybe would you like to share like a few last words for us? Maybe we can start from you, Nick. Maybe a little words for our viewers.
Yeah, well, like I say, it's a real honor to be here, and I really do appreciate. I feel very privileged to be part of these conversations and learn about the sophisticated and super intelligent ways in which makers all over the world are contributing to this global discussion. So I think the more that we can talk, the more that we can use technology like this to positively share and create these cultures that we talk about, the better, really. And, it's like I say, it's really inspiring for me to work with fantastic people like yourselves and to learn from you. So thank you, and let's just keep talking and keep moving some of these initiatives forward. Fantastic thing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nick. Chisanti and Ko Humphrey, any few words for our viewers?
Thank you so much for having us today. I think I'm very happy to be here and to learn so much, especially from Nick. I think we're kind of new in this game, and there's so much things that we have to learn. Hearing Nick's presentation really wants me to go back to university again. I think learning more about all this. really, it feels very comforting, you know, to be able to learn something from somebody telling you what to do somewhat. I kind of miss that feeling.
So the important thing is like, Nick, are you on Clubhouse?
Are any of you guys on Clubhouse? We need to do like conversation on Clubhouse. Pick a room.
Let's do it.
I'm serious. Are you in Clubhouse? I need to add you.
Do have me.
Yeah, right, Eugene? I think we should do that.
Right. I don't use iPhone though.
What? No, go get one now.
Okay, so Nick, if you're accepting a new student, you have one here with us.
I think it would be the other way around.
Three students here. So potential master student at Brighton University.
Can we do classes?
Okay, thank you so much. It's also inspiring for me. I also actually started to buy like more locally sourced products here in Indonesia. I do value craftsmanship in Indonesia a lot. I think they're more beautiful if it's handmade, not machine made. Also, to close this program, so I think we are getting too long here. Sorry. Okay, so also thank you also to our viewers on YouTube and Facebook who have stayed with us for more than 2 hours now. Thank you for your questions as well. We do have a survey on the comment section. Please fill it up and to help us improve our programs. I'd also like to invite our young design students and designers to apply for the Design Up Close Craft Workers Mentoring and Open Review with Zoe Powell from UK and Abi Abdillah from Indonesia. You can also find the link on the comment section or please access Museum Macan's Instagram at Museum Macan or British Council Instagram at ID British Arts or at BWI Furniture at BWI Furniture. The application ends tomorrow at 6 p.m. Jakarta time. Please, we still open the registration, so please apply if you're interested to learn more about the materials and crafts. Okay, again, thank you everyone. Stay safe wherever you are and have a great week and bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
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 Thank you very much.